Hello, welcome to Videoman and Gizmo's channel. Today I have with me a director I have a backstory with, Knut Jensen. I worked for Knut when I was 15 years old the first time. It was in 1996, I believe, or 7, on a movie called Brent of Frost. What's the English title on that one, Knut?
Burnt by Frost.
Was probably only 3 days I was on that one as a grip assistant. I don't remember much from that experience, but I met Knut Erik over time, some random places and stuff, because we are from the same place, Honningsvåg. And he is like the film director from Honningsvåg. So when I was younger, as I told you before, Knut Erik, it was impossible to get away from your films. But as I grew older, I appreciate your films. It's hard for a 16-year-old to actually understand your films, at least for me back in the days. But anyway, I got the pleasure to work with Knut Erik, I think it was almost 20 years later. First, a short film, Morgen. That short film and 3 other short films that we did together was later created to a feature. And that was kind of part of the plan all the way. We were hoping for that at least. So I got the pleasure to work for you for almost 4 years on Längslet Nåti. Do that has an English title now, or?
Longing for Today.
And Longing for Today has a cinema premiere
27th of October in Oslo, yeah.
So it's a big thing coming now. And but the main reason I wanted to do this is because I'm focusing, as everybody knows, on physical releases. All of the people who follow my channel does too. And your films are really important films for, as I said, not only for Norwegian history, but for the history of the movie history. So I just find it so weird that your films doesn't have any like really good physical releases yet. So that's why I wanted to do this and maybe open the eyes to some of the boutique companies out there that are doing great jobs nowadays with physical releases of great films. I just want to start off this this conversation by asking you, because you have had such a enormous, I would say, career working for the Norwegian like in-house for the Norwegian national broadcast, NRK, and you have made, I think this is your 6th feature plus a really famous documentary TV series and 4 documentaries for cinema and many short films also. So I just want to start the whole thing by asking you a pretty broad question, but still, what was the main reason that got you into the love of cinema, the love of creating moving images?
I think when I was actually 12 and a half years old, there was a big trip with a boys brass band from Honningsvåg to Gjøvik in southern part of Norway. And I was playing the S cornet. And my father gave me 100 Norwegian kroners that he was waving in the air to show everybody how much money his boy could bring with him to this fantastic event. So the others, they bought ice cream and series and, but I bought a camera. I was 12 and a half years old, a Kodak Bakelit, 25 kroners, because everything was burned down in this area because of the Germans. When they drew back from Finnmark, they burnt everything. In Honningsvåg was only the church left. So I believe that if I didn't bring a camera with me and got some pictures afterwards, nobody would believe that I had been there. So that was the main reason, because I was also a great admirer of our conductor. So I took a lot of pictures of him. Wherever he went, I was there with the camera. So it all probably started there. I've looked at some of it, and I'm going to have an exhibition this year of these photographs, because then it would be 70 years since I bought that camera. So I took not a lot, because, you sometimes the film stayed for 1 year in the camera because you couldn't afford to take, as many pictures as you do today. So I'm looking for these negatives while I'm here in Honningsvåg to process them for an exhibition here in Honningsvåg. So it all started there, and fascination for the visual. Because, as I said, everything was burnt down. There were very few photographs of my family. Everything went into the fire. So, memories of all sorts, from furniture to albums of photographs, everything went up into flames. So, to sort of, what should I say, document things was probably something that, that fascinated me at the time. So then it took some time before I started up again. When I was studying in Oslo, I studied history to find my place in the world, to place myself locally with a broader mind. So I studied history at university in Oslo first, and then I studied French because I thought if you learn French, it would be easier to learn all the other Roman languages, which is Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, and so on. And to be able at that time to study French, you had to have Latin as well for one semester. So it was the basis for all the Roman languages. I went to France and stayed a period of time there, finishing French, speaking, relatively good French with a Finnmark accent. I thought, what would be my last subject? And Norway, having a common border with Russia at that time, Soviet Union, 196 kilometers. If you stand at that border and look into Russia, there's only one country between Norway and China. That's the fact. It was the only country, NATO member, that had a common border with the Soviet Union. But it was a closed border. But my father, being born in 2004, when Norway still was in the union with Sweden, he remembered the pomor, the Russian traders that came in spring, summertime, to trade fish and flowers and all sorts of things. And he remembered these Russian people and also some others in that generation. So that always fascinated me. So I decided that the last subject in my student career should be Russian, because at that time Soviet Union were 15 republics. So I thought, speaking Russian, I could speak Russian in all these republics. And also at that time, at the Warsaw Pact, you had the whole part of Eastern Europe, which was also Slavonic, and they were compulsory to study Russian. So by studying Russian, I had what should I say? I had a sort of key into the Slavonic world. So even today, when all these republics have become national states, there are still some rests of the Russian language in some of these parts with the older generation. So that's what I did. And then when I was finished with that, I came back to Homage. But in Russia, I bought my first so-called living camera, which was a quartz 8.8 millimeter. And I also had a stills camera with me, of course, to Russia, and also an old Tandberg tape recorder, which all the Russians wanted to buy it, but I kept it all through my stay. Having been a member when I was a student in Oslo, I was a member of the Oslo Film Club. I was also part in the Film Club Association in Norway. So I was always, in a way, interested in films. Also during my time in Honningsvåg, when I was at high school, the first experiences were in the German barracks. The cinema in Honningsvåg was in an old barrack, and there I saw my first movies, like The Man with the Iron Mask. I saw, and I don't know in Norwegian or in English, but it was the first film that Yves Montand was playing in. It's a big, huge carriage of not of TNT, but of nitroglycerin.
Wage of Fear.
Wage of Fear, that's right. Fryktens lønn. I had a nightmare after these two films for several weeks in
It's an
Honningsvåg.
amazing movie. I saw it.
I saw it in the barrack, in the German barrack here. And also, you at that time, when we got a new cinema, it was a very, very modern cinema with the best equipment they had at that time in Norway. CinemaScope, top quality in every sense. So I saw a lot of my, what should I say, when I was a teenage kind of person, I saw the classical films, of Bergman, and also, of course, all European films, also the Russian films, like The Cranes Are Flying, Letyat Shuravli in Russian. I saw a lot of the classical films before I was 20 years old, because cinema was the only entertainment you had, except for the local cabarets and the cafes and so on, and what should I say, the National Theatre every now and then came. I used to sell the tickets or to stand in the door. So I saw very early, as a teenager, 13, 14 years old, I saw the National Theatre in Honningsvåg. And also, as I said, all the cinema I saw here with the Italian cinema, and also very much the French one. I saw, for example, Hiroshima Mon Amour when it had a premiere, and so on and so on. So I saw a lot of the classics. And my friends used to say, "Why are you going to these strange films? Don't try to convince me that you understand anything of this." And I said, "I don't understand anything, but I like it."
Yeah.
So that was the that was the thing. But then I bought this camera, this quartz, when I studied in Russia for 1 year, 69 to 1970. I was the president of the international student club for a period over there, so I got access to a lot of strange experiences while I was there. And I bought this Ports double 8mm camera, and shot my first film in Russia, in Leningrad, with a beautiful woman walking around in a churchyard. And when I came back, that's it, yes, 24 frames per second. I later on made an exhibition of photographs with this.
And this was, what year was this, Knut Erik?
It was in 1970. And later on, I made, yeah, that's it. I made a photo exhibition. Because I said, if you are a director and you cannot expose 24 classical photographs in a professional gallery, you should find something else to do. Because film is 24 frames per second. So it's out of around 7,000 images. I selected 24 frames and one 25th smaller one for the television. So that's it on the front of the book. And I showed this film to a good friend of mine, Knut with some avant-garde Russian composers that at that time were more or less forbidden in the Soviet Union. I showed it to him in this very house, and he said automatically, "You are a visual genius. You have to go to a film school." So he was the one that gave me a good push in the ass.
A good friend.
A good friend, and still today. So what we did was to send applications to all film schools all over the world, more or less. So the mailbox was filled every day with brochures and everything. And I sent one to London as well. After some time, I took a telephone because I didn't want to go to Poland or to France or to other places where not that I didn't speak the language, but I didn't want to use more time on that sense because English was easier. So I took a phone call to the London International Film School, told my name and so on, and they said, "Yes, you are welcome to come to the school." So in order not to be, what shall I say, not to, that they shouldn't realized that I was a big bluff because I had only made this short 8 film. So I made a manuscript with my friend in the main role, Knut. We did a visual sort of stills manuscript I sent away, and I got in. And then, not to be discovered as a big bluff, I thought, well, I have to buy myself a camera, a professional camera. So I bought a 16 millimeter Bolex EBM electric with a big cassette on top, and I built it in a sort of self-made suitcase, and went away to London with this camera that I used 1 week to put together because of the German manual. So I went away because I thought, when you go to a film school, I thought, well, everybody has to have a camera. And when I got to this film school, it had altogether, I think, 300-400 students.
And you were the one.
I was the only one that had a camera, So, after 1 week, the rumors went along in the film school that there was an Eskimo that had his own camera because he came from the Arctic. So there was a lot of students, coming to me and say, "Can we borrow your camera?" And I said, "No." I said, "If you borrow the camera, you have to bring me. I will be the cameraman."
Yeah.
So I destroyed a lot of students' films before I got a certain skill. So I came straight into professional milieu in London because of different kind of things. I don't know how much time I should use on this, but when I went to London, I took a boat, and on the boat I had to share the cabin with three other passengers, and one of them was from America. I had just been in developing aid, sort of, so in the Philippines. So he was going to London to meet some of his not girlfriends, but girls that were working in the Philippine television. They were going to have a course in the BBC. And I said, well, let's meet if it suits you sometime. And I forgot about the whole thing. I said I was and so on one day on the film school, there was an announce. He invited me to a party, and into that party were the 4 pupils from the Philippines and their mentor, a beautiful woman working at the BBC. So she invited me to another party where I met an American that was going to make a feature with James Mason in the main role. And he said, pass by. I have an office in Sheffield Street, close to the Wardour Street. Pass by and we will have a dinner together and talk and so on. And I went there and he rented an office there. So I was introduced to the woman that rented out, Cynthia Moody, and she edited my first film that I made while I went to the school. So in London, I shot. I think it is. No, it's the unforeseen dramaturgy, which is the basis in all my films. Instead of the.
You have an IE problem.
But this is a visual thing, I turn him down. But this is what I call the unforeseen dramaturgy. You never know what happens. But if you work within conventional storytelling, as 99.999999% do, probably you included, then everything. No, okay, then you are influenced by me, unfortunately. It will be very hard for you to be a filmmaker, with this.
Yeah, I will be broke.
I used to say, if life is as boring as an American film, the life would be as boring, because then you know everything already after 1 or 2 or 3 minutes. That is the male way of making conventional things. That's why they are making cannons and weapons, because they are pleased when it hits the target. Then they are pleased, that's it. Yeah, it works.
Yeah.
So if you have the same dramaturgy in the movies, I find it too boring to even use my time to actually see it.
Yeah.
So this is that's why it happens with this telephone. Who could foresee that? But in an American film, you will have picture of the phone, picture of you, picture of me in the bus here and there, back and forth, and then the phone came in again.
Yeah.
You planted it in the story, and so everybody is pleased, and especially those who earn money. The most fantastic in America now is that they have produced Barbie and the atom bomb.
Yeah, I know.
This is fantastic, and everybody runs to see it. And of course, this Oppenheimer, he regrets that he did it. Oh, but he had to do it. And every woman is playing with Barbie, and everybody is not pleased with it.
Yeah.
Still, they do it. Yeah. God bless them all. So what I say is the unforeseen is much more a feminist kind of approach, because women go more for emotions than rationalism. And life is never rational. You don't know what happens when you pass the next corner. Your life can change. You meet somebody that reminds you of your father who died 20 years ago, and you are into your own thoughts, your own dreams. There is no logic in life except the timeline. So, if you use logic for emotions, if artists like Edvard Munch used logic when he created the Scream, if it had never appeared, because the artist energy is unforeseen. You never know the result. That's why they never support my films, because you have to understand what you are telling. People have to understand what you are doing. But when you do something that nobody has done before, it's always two sort of camps. Those who are always curious about the new, and those who are scared of the new. I used to say, I don't want to hear what I see, and I don't want to see what I hear, which means that you work in as Bach, Sebastian Bach, he worked in contrapunct. Once you see something, hear something else, then you get into more complicated sort of things, So you should never, and all films should be simple, complicated, and manifolded. You should understand what's going on, but it seems simple. But when you put it together in a special way, it becomes simple but complicated.
Mm.
And when it is simple and complicated, and then it becomes manifolded. And also, I wanted to write the manuscript as a partitura, as they do in a symphony. When you have a symphony, you have the conductor. He has all the instruments on the table in front of him, so he can just. And then you have soloists, and and transitions. If you have good transitions, then you don't have the time to understand what's going on, because the film language can take you away all the time.
You have made the documentary in Norway, if I read this correctly. I think we talked about it earlier also. Heftig og begeistra, cool. What's the English?
Cool and crazy.
I think it's still the most viewed cinema documentary feature made in Norway, if I'm not mistaken. Do you have any thoughts why you think people were running to the cinema to see Cool and Crazy?
I think it's because I made let's say, how much is that? 7-8 years before that, I made my first feature called Stella Polaris, which is 1.5 hours without dialogue. If I hadn't done that movie, I would never been capable by handicraft to do this documentary. So let's say the contrast, as people might see it, is enormous, but it is made by the same person, which means that the basis that is in my universe that I try to make is humanity in the broader sense, which means I don't want to call it the mankind. Let's call it the womankind. When you have that basis, sooner or later, people will, in a way, see it, even if they don't know anything about what other things you have made. And I think the basis is that it's in a way a feel-good film, but it is not easy. Because when people both can laugh and cry and shake their heads and, whatever is the reactions, it's very different reactions, because people are different. Somebody find it funny, but at the same time, they might cry or whatever. So I think it has a deep sense of women humanity in the bottom, which means that I think it is the Swedish poet says, "Det är synd på människan." It's a pity. I feel pity for humanity because they are so, or as I used to say, that Darwin used to say that man is descendant from the apes. But after heavy protests from the apes, he gave up the theory. Because the apes didn't want to be in the same family, they are too intelligent. Yeah. So that's why I always have women in my main characters, because I believe in that part of humanity. And the last novel of some called Maren, from Sami origin, Norwegian and Danish origin. She has just published a novel that is heavily disputed now in Denmark. It might come to Norway in a few years' time, but it's called 11%. So it's a women society. They need only 11% men to survive. So they keep them, ready when they want to have some sex, they call this 11% so they can produce more children. Keep them. They say that men are too dangerous to be wild, to go along in society. Society should be protected against them with beautiful women everywhere.
Yeah, that's important. The most important.
11% of men.
Yeah, 11%. I hope I'm one of those percent.
Yeah. That is in the novel. They don't need more.
Oh.
It should be peace. So I will tell Tommy.
The infrastructure would be a problem, though. Who is going to build the buildings?
You can do a lot outside buildings as well.
That's true. I just want to say to the audience that my take on Hefty Obligations, Cool and Crazy, that I think is great about it is that it's the only documentary I have seen in my life where I will say it's more of a musical, or I will say 50% of the movie feels like a fiction film. But then you go into the interviews in the film that is a doc. And I think that's something I never seen before done in that way. So I will highly recommend the audience to check it out. And also you get to see a lot of beautiful things from the north, shot in Boulevard, right?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. But you made a sequel to that one, Cool and Crazy 2. And I don't know the full story on this, but I don't know, did you go also over to New York because of the 9/11?
Yeah, the thing was, they wanted me to make a number 2. And I said, no, I'm not interested. This is the movie. It's over with it for me. But then 9/11 happened. And then I said, yeah, let's go. So we were among the first to film in the ruins with the choir, singing for the firemen, being up in the top buildings, and going all the way around in America just after 9/11, all the way to Hollywood even, and with discussions in the film between the members of 9/11, Hiroshima, and this catastrophe in America's history, a little more than 3,000 people died, which is what America can do in one day, when they go to Vietnam or wherever they went. So it was a tragedy, of course. It's not good that this thing happens. But they discuss in the film, America's more or less role. As you know, in the choir, there were communists and right-wing people, but they united in the music. They united as human beings in the music. But when they started to discuss, they discussed everything in a democratic way. And when they were talking about, let's say, 9/11 and World Trade Center, one of the members said, "But what about Hiroshima? It was 120,000 people that, more or less died in 1 second. Was it necessary?" No, they made Oppenheimer. And of course, he regrets what he did.
Yeah.
So I don't need to see the movie because I know the story so well
Yeah.
from my history books and everything. So I'm only getting depressed. If I see Barbie and Oppenheimer, I become depressed that this is the movies that is, in a way, mainstream for everybody. When there are so many other fantastic movies that they could see and to enrich their horizon. But of course, as I said, the worst thing with Coca-Cola is that it is good. What
Yeah.
can you do? What can
Yeah, that's true.
you have to you have to have it. But
And it's
you
addicting.
can
Addicted.
decide, if you want to have it or not. So what I say, if I don't get support in my movies, I said, well, I have myself to blame. I cannot blame others for making this silly choice, But I'm happy with what I'm doing, and it takes time, okay, but things that has to be done will be done. And the worst thing you can do in your life, if you want to be an artist, if you want to be a film artist, you cannot use that word in Norway. If you say that you are working with film art, it's 100% guaranteed that you don't get support. But what they do with the ordinary films, or what I call kiosk literature, they call that filmkunst.
Pulp Fiction. That's it's like the easy stuff you buy in kiosk of literature, small
Yeah,
books. And,
yeah. It's
So,
merchandise. That's it. Yeah, it's
yeah.
just a piece of merchandise. It's just like buying a shirt or a pair of shoes. And film is of course a very, very strong merchandise. And the thing is, of course, that if you compare it to literature, I used to say, if somebody asked me what would you do in your next life, I would say I want to be a writer. And they ask why. And I say the only thing you need is a laptop and a bad childhood. Nothing else. If I have a good idea, it will cost 1 million that I myself have to find. So, it's so silly to work in cinema because if it's so much money on stake, you understand that people, producers and so on, that has to survive. When they see me, they try to avoid me or look another direction because I say, why can't you, you have a lot of money, can't you support my film? And they try to avoid you, And I know 10 millionaires, I used to go to them and say, can't you support my film with 1 million Norwegian kroners? I can guarantee that you are going to lose them.
Yeah.
And then they are very interested, of course. I'm today the oldest filmmaker in Norway, still working, believe it or not.
But I think it's interesting because what you said now about Norwegian system. I had Norbit on this on a stream. He's a director from Austria, and in Austria they have like our own film fund that goes straight for experimental film and art films. And like he said, I asked him during the interview, and he couldn't name one experimental filmmaker from Norway, but he mentioned like so many from different other countries. And I'm not saying there isn't any experimental films there because there are in Norway as well, but I'm just saying I think Austria and a lot of other countries have really gained we are left behind because the Norwegian government doesn't support art house film. No, like not art house, but experimental films and art house films in many ways.
I think the reason is, I've thought about it. I should list up once, just to provoke the capital, Oslo. I should list up the most famous artists in Norway, being writers or painters or composers or whatever. And I can prove that none of these 10 comes from the capital. You have Hamsun from the north, you have Grieg from Bergen, you have Munch from the south, But the difference is that if you want to write, you can sit everywhere for free.
Yeah.
If you want to paint, you can, as I used to say, you can drink the complimentary paint, drink it up and throw it up on the screen, put it up as frustration number 1, 2, and 3. It doesn't cost you almost nothing. But to make a movie, you had to do it in Oslo because it's a more industrial thing. It's an expensive thing, which means that Norway is a coastal and fishery nation. The Viking nation from the west, went on. So if the capital had been in Bergen or in Trondheim, it would have been another country. But the Swedes and the Danes were intelligent enough to put a capital in Norway in the bottom of a fjord. And if you are in the bottom of the fjord, you turn the back to the rest of the country and look to Europe. So you make, what shall I say, you make fake Norwegian films because the capital is not and has not been strong enough to make, what shall I say, Norwegian films. So when I come out from Norway and they ask what you're doing, and I say I make Norwegian films because I it's something else than just a film. When I went to Oslo when they were opening the Cinematheque and so on, people were thinking it was nice. I was there and so on, and they said, "Yeah, who are you or what are you doing here?" And I said, "I'm supporting Norway." Because I was more or less the only one that was not from the capital area.
Yeah.
So all the main let's say writers in Norway are from everywhere in the country. One of the last one, the biggest success now, was about the Finnish immigration into Norway. Ingeborg Arvola, born in Honningsvåg, and she wrote about that. And she's sitting, she can sit everywhere and write that book. As Hamsun did, as Ibsen did. He stayed 27 years away from Norway. So, you can sit, and my good friend painter, Bjarne Holst, the fantastic painter, I will tell you to Google him. So this is to blame you.
Yeah, I take full blame.
But as I say, in the film industry, the only one that doesn't have to know anything is the director. If you're a bad photographer, everybody will see it. If you're a bad songman, but if you're a bad director and have good actors, you get away with it. You can get away with it. But so I used to say, I'm the only Crone idiot, as we say in Norwegian, Crone idiot, that have passed my whole career in Northern Norway.
And so the viewers understand the distance between where I live now in the south up to Knut Erik is, you can compare it with the same distance from New York down to Florida almost. So it's Norway is so stretched. That's what Knut Erik is also talking about now, about people not staying in the north because we have to move south to get money to actually survive.
It's not true, but okay.
What did I say that's not true? Florida?
Yeah, that you have to do it. You said it's easier if you go there. But as I say, once you compromise, you are not any longer an artist.
That's why I moved from Oslo now to Tønsberg. I want to be a Viking.
Knight of the First Order of St. Olaf for my support for Norwegian films. That was, very funny because I brought with me a very small camera. So I was documenting the whole thing into the castle and everything. I made a funny film about what should I say, an innocent man coming from cod fisheries and from nothing to the castle, you know. So I asked, one of the first things I asked was, is there a toilet here? So I went into the royal toilet and had a pee in the pissoir there, and I was filming myself in the mirror. Knut Erik Jensen, you are now at the castle. You cannot reach any further in Norway. You know, so I was making a movie out of this, but I had to let the camera go when I was entering into the office of the king himself, and had a fantastic conversation with him. And then I picked up the camera again, and outside on the statue of Karl Johan, there was a choir waiting for me, singing a song, you know. And then I went all the way from the bed in the beginning back to the bed. So I made a document of that.
So it could be like Knut Erik, minutes by minute.
Yeah. So we had a DCP and showed it in the cinema here. It's quite funny, yeah. It's nice.
Yeah.
Self-document. And you were talking about documentaries and fiction and Cool and Crazy and so on.
Yeah, this was after Cool and Crazy, right? This
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have the time to. I was insulting the Majesty because I didn't answer, you know, for a long time. And when I was turning a certain age, I thought I should contact the castle and an excuse for not having been there, because I was knighted more than 10 years before I went to the castle or something. So I phoned my good friend Tom Remlo and he said it's a very pénible in French. What is it? Also
Embarrassing.
Embarrassing situation. Yeah.
Well, you have done something. I don't think it's many film creators who has from Norway who has gone that journey.
I thought it could make it easier for me to get support, you know, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
I got this so-called Amanda, which is the Norwegian Oscar, the honorable. And I called it Borebukett, because when you are a certain age, you get this honorable Amanda, which means that you are out of date. You see, you don't want to any longer. So I said, no, I'm coming back.
How many years ago did you get that honorable, Amanda?
It's maybe it's 20 years ago. I don't know.
Oh man! Well, then they came early.
I have to check it up, because I've been working since, you know, so they didn't get rid of me.
No, they tried.
So after me, you know, all this got it, you know, Liv Ullmann and everybody got it. When you're out of business, or they think you are too old, you know. But if you go to the world cinema, you know, you have Manuel de Oliveira. He made his last film after what I have. After what I know, when he was 105 years old. Unfortunately, he died the year afterwards, and more or less at the age of 106. Yeah. And then you have, you know, Bergman was working into his 80s.
Clint Eastwood too is up in his 94 or something.
Kurosawa, you know, you name them all, Fellini and so on. You know, they were, you know, in the 70s, 80s. And I think Woody Allen, which names cannot be mentioned today, probably he is 80, around 82. He's still working. But in Norway, you know, when you have passed 50, you're out of business.
I wanted to ask you something, Knut, and you gotta just say if you don't want to answer it or anything. But it's about the Second World War and your experience through that thing. But it's also because of the film that's coming now, Longing for Today.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to go into that, or because I think that's really interesting for the audience also to listen, because you experienced that.
Yeah, you might say that all the years, I'm turning 83. I have to fall down and admit it.
Next month, yeah.
Yeah, next month. And you might say that during that lifetime, there has been a war anywhere or everywhere in the world, constantly. There has not been 100% peace in these 83 years on the planet. And this is the result of mankind. Everything from, you know, Alexander the Great or or Genghis Khan, or you name it, all the way up to our good friends Napoleon and Gaddafi, and you name them all in turn. I'm going to do that in my next movie. All the way we are our good friend Adolf, which last name you all know, and from him to Joseph. Stalin means that he has rusty underpants. Stalin means the steel man. And I said it's because he has rust in his underpants. And from him to this great guy, Vladimir Putin. So all these tyrants, they are either too small of growth, they are like Napoleon, or or Putin, or even Adolf Hitler and all. They are either small with complexes, or they are as big as Peter the Great and some of the others, He preferred to cut the heads off by himself instead of having others to do it. So it's a line all the way up to Putin. It's all the way to China, all the way even to America, to South America. It's the same men trying to convince women that they have to send their sons into the war. So in all that lifetime I've lived, there has been a just war, a justified war. If you take Europe, every country in Europe has been on different sides in wars as long as we know. But you take all the republics today, after the Soviet Union, the Baltic states, Sweden, big power at the time, conquered by Peter the Great, Finland during, and Austrian, Hungarian Empire fell apart, and you had all these quarrels between all the states. Italy going here and there and everywhere, Austria to Germany and back and forth, and so on and so on and so on. It's going on and on and on, and then you have the colonial wars. It has been going on the whole time in my lifetime, and it's still going on. And this is what my film is about. It's not about the Second World War. It's about a woman that tries to find her way, to find reason, to find, what shall I say, a reason for living on this planet, with also the climate changes, everything we have, which in my opinion is the result of mankind, again, men's fight or war against nature. It's a war against nature. So nature is revenging. If the planet doesn't reproduce itself, all the American goes to the moon with spaceships. I've done it in films now for 50 years, I think. I call it a children's game, I don't take it serious, but a lot of people does, They even find it funny. Because I'm against every tendency to violence. I hate violence in movies. I hate violence in wars. And when I grew up, there was a lot of fighting, so I can still hear the sound of the fits that hits the faces of people because of alcohol or drinks or whatever. So I'm 100% against that. I believe that if we don't get into that way, that we realize that the planet is, what shall I say, a sort of feminine kind of brutal world. This is what my film is about, is this woman trying to find some sort of reason. And the backdrop of this, or what should I say, the base of this is the Second World War that I have survived myself. But it is, I hope it is representative for the state, as you say, the state of war, tillstand. Because we are on that state today, we are in this situation. The paradox is, if you want peace, you have to fight. So now you have the spiral, the NATO spiral, and everything is going up and up and up and up. So we have to bless Oppenheimer that really found up the atom bomb,
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's our Jesus.
If you know Tom Lehrer, maybe some of you have heard about Tom Lehrer, the mathematician, the professor in America that made a lot of good songs in the 60s. He made a song on the atom bomb. I think it was something like, first we got a bomb, and that was good because we love peace and brotherhood. Then Soviet got a bomb, and and every refrain was, we better have a bomb, we better have a bomb. The last verse was, and the next to go is Monaco. Even Monaco should have a bomb.
For me, I always looked at the Längsla efter nåt or Longing for Today as your story. Just look through the eyes of what makes it even more special is that it looks through the eyes of your daughter.
It's very difficult for me to use the word film artist. But if you are an artist, you have to take everything out from yourself. The others, they pick out a book from the shelves and make a movie, or they have somebody else to write a manuscript, and then they make the movie, and everything is already planned, everything is concluded, everything is okay. But once you are a Munch, or a Hamsun, or a Hemingway, or whatever, you name it, Henry Miller, you can name all these authors, whatever they are, or painters. What do? Munch, he paints the same thing all the way. He can make a portrait of a capitalist to get some money when he had lack of money. Nobody knows this capitalist, but they see it's a picture of Munch. You can see it at once. So I used to say, if you see one of my movies and you cannot tell after 1 or 2 minutes that I made it, then it's not good enough. So what you have to do from the beginning, as I try to do, is to create creative confusion. From the beginning, creative confusion. That you are prepared to don't know what you're going to see. So either you open up, you call it bullshit, or you go into the universe. It's just like the Scream, no, it's in commercials everywhere, in balloons and everything. But whatever you do, as I say, the original is always better than a copy. But it means that the original thing can inspire you to find yourself. You mean you are inspired by everything, by society, by art, by music, whatever, you are inspired by it, but you do your own thing. You find your own way, and that's why I say that this movie will be, when it is personal, nobody else can do it than you. Nobody can do a Munch except for Munch. You can be inspired. In Norway, after Hamsun, all the authors, they didn't get rid of him because he was so good. Unfortunately, he became a Nazi. That's another story. But he was so good that after him, it was hard to write. So a lot of authors in Norway burnt their manuscripts. And the same with Munch. So all the painters in Norway are because he was famous so early that all the painters that grew up after him got, how can you get rid of that genius? The only way to get rid of that genius is to say that you are a genius yourself. Because it's only you. You are alone. There's nobody else. So you have to express what is your personality, which is unique. There's nobody like you. If you are able to express that, then you are a personal genius. People might not like what you're doing. They hate it or whatever. They say, this is nonsense. I don't care. But as long as as you did your best, you didn't compromise, you did your thing. That's why I say, if you want to go to Hollywood, buy yourself a ticket. It's free. You can go there. I've been there. To provoke myself, I made one film there on Hollywood Boulevard. And I told my good friend Joseph Culp, do you want to be a co-producer? He said, yes. Do you have any money? No. And I said, we're going to shoot it on Hollywood Boulevard, and it's going to be empty. And it was a long pause in the other end of the telephone, and said, it's not possible. And I said, we can do it in the night. No, there are people all time. On Hollywood Boulevard, it's impossible. You can do it because it's too lonely people walking around. And he said, we can do it in the crowd, and they can be lonely in the crowd. And I said, no, it has to be the empty boulevard. Okay. So we went there at midnight, more or less, and it was empty. Of course. And why was it empty? Because on that night, they put new asphalt on the road.
Yeah. I remember you said that.
Yeah. Is that luck? Is that destiny? No. It's your own energy that said, instead of giving in and say, yeah, we have to do it in daytime. I said, no, we do it in the night anyway. It's going to be empty. And when it was shown, and I did that as a self-provocation and to show that it's easy to make a movie in Hollywood if you have the energy. Somebody makes it, you know, that's possible. So when it was shown at the LA at Cinematheque there together with some of my other films, they promoted it and said, come and see Voice of Life on an empty boulevard as you have never seen it before, and you will never see it again because it's empty. Because they put asphalt on.
That's also Alan Dorrit that's in that one, right?
Yeah.
I remember.
And they asked me, how did you get it empty? And I said, you know, it costed $1 million, but I did it. And everybody, where did you get that million from? No, I have sponsors, you know, and everything. So they thought it was true.
Yeah.
That I had paid $1 million to empty it.
This was in America also, you gotta remember. Over there, everything costs money.
Yeah. You know, money is the religion.
Yeah.
You know, it was just like it says, in God we trust. Isn't that what it said on the dollar?
Yeah, probably.
In God we trust, yeah.
Yeah.
No, you know what was on the belt of the German soldiers? Gott mit uns, which means God is with us.
Mm.
So it's more or less the same. But I don't compare them to each other, of course. But now you have Trump. You know, he's a good guy.
But you said that you don't like violence and all of that, and I know you have little violence in your film, especially since many people look at some of your films as war films. I don't know if yourself do that, but you have a scene in a film, and you know I'm into exploitation, and you have probably the most famous exploitation scene ever done in Norway, the history of Norway, in Burned by
Trust.
Trust. Thank you.
By frost, not by trust. Burned by
frost. Burned by frost.
But that's a good title. Burned by trust.
Yeah. That's the sequel.
Yeah.
But you have a scene in that film that everybody knows, and with Gurrin Maurseth and Stig Henrik Hoff. And I was just wondering, where did you come up with that idea?
I was working together with Alfred Jacobsen on the manuscript. He's a journalist and he knew the story. So we worked together on three films actually. But he was, you know, he was a writer. But he is from Hammerfest and so on. So yeah, we were good friends here and there. And we were sitting actually at the Munch Hotel in Oslo. I said, we lack a love sequence in the movie. And he said, well, and we lack a quarreling scene with a NATO officer. So we sat on each side in this very small room. And in 15 minutes, I wrote that sequence in the boat. So Munch has part of this.
It's even been so famous that our now most famous director overseas, at least, Tommy Wirkola, he made in his first film a parody or a hyllest. What's that? Homage, yeah, to Knut Erik. He's also from the north. It's a film that nobody in America knows, but it's a Kill Buljo. You have a scene in there that's like a homage to your scene, and it's fun. So
they make love in a fish, yeah, with living fish.
Yeah, you had living fish.
One of the idea was that, you know, in southern part of Norway or in Europe, you know, when you're taking in the hay in the autumn, people make love in, you know, in the barrens here and there. In Europe, they do it when they pick the grapes or whatever, you know. So I thought, well, in northern Norway, they do it in the fish.
Yeah.
So when I showed it in Haugesund, you know, in the festival there was a mad American, a crazy American running into my face, you know, completely, and he said, my God, they did it in the fish. This is unbelievable. I've never seen this before. This is film history. Nobody has done it before you, and nobody can do it afterwards.
Yeah, that's scene is.
We should not forget that to make movies is also fun, especially when you are shooting, you know. You have to be a serious man to be a comedian, you know. As Chaplin is one of my, you know, favorites, you know. The dictator, you know, you never get closer to Putin than to see the dictator, you know, or Bush or whatever the names are, or Trump, you know. It's the same guys. And this Chaplin, you know, this is I think this is not only film history. It cannot be copied. But he tried also to make modern films in a way, and he lost in his last period. You know, he was, you know, it was a pity in many ways, but he did his best with Marlon Brando, and you know, to flirt with Hollywood is dangerous. You never get out of that. It's like Hamsun is writing in Hunger. Hollywood is a place you never leave without being marked by it. Excuse me. A lot of the film industry, it's about killing somebody else. Why? I don't understand why. Intellectually, I don't understand it. That people are attracted by this. You know, it is like that, but I don't understand the reason. And I'm not a religious person in that sense.
But it's kind of weird because I read actually about this some years ago. I have a book about the film industry, the violence in films, and they say that the easiest way to sell something is to get the woman attached to it. Like to sell to the women is the best because then the guys also will buy it. And they say that like horror films are 70 to 80% women who goes to see those films, and then the boyfriend follows. So I think everything started during the 60s, 70s with real violence on films. Like violence you see today on film started around 60s, 70s, mostly from America and Italy. And I think that they attracted the women. So then the guys also followed, you know.
Yeah.
So
it's a mystery anyway, you know. But
I was wondering, since you have the movie coming on cinema now, the 27th, right? October.
27th of October in Colosseum in Oslo. The royal family, some of the royal family will be there. If not, I will be neglected. They have to be polite, you know, even if they don't like me or the movie, you know. It's hard for the whole family to say no.
No, but that's a big thing, and I'm thinking you have worked with this film now for, was it like almost 10 years in like to raise the money and everything, and plus you had 4 years of filming if you count the short film, like leading up to the feature part of filming, and now you have 2 years after with post-production, so you're up now to 16 years at least. 17 maybe. Is this something that has been tearing you apart, or did you like this experience?
You know, I've been doing a lot of things in that interval also, both for cinema and for television. So I haven't been out of work. I haven't been working on that all the time, because I'm also producing short films myself, videos. I don't call them music videos. I call them music films.
Yeah.
Because I don't like the word. If you do it as a video, you know what is in that sort of definition. I rather call it small short films. So I do that with small costs with my own camera to keep my eye fresh through the lens.
And you also did, Knut Erik, the feature, the documentary with the doctor in Tromsø. That was also a cinema release, right?
That was cinema released, and I did it only him and me. I had a camera and a wireless, and we went along, Canada, America, Palestine, Gaza, Israel, Sweden, Denmark, Germany. We went all around with his speeches, and with me on the camera, and it was for cinema. So you can do things quite cheaply today. I used to say that if you have the energy, before when you have had rolls of films and so on, it was expensive. Once you press the button, it cost 100 kroners for each second, more or less. But today, instead of rain, it's cameras falling from the sky. So if you want to make a movie, you can buy a camera that is 3, 4 years, 5 years old, which is good enough for almost nothing. And then you can start shooting. And a documentary doesn't cost you anything. I used to say, the nail you put, when you put poster on the wall, you have these small nails, with a head on the nail. I used to say you can even make a film on that nail if you have the right person to sit on it. So you can make a movie from everything, anything. And it's free. Today it's free. So where are all the geniuses?
I don't know. They got lost somewhere in
the industry.
In the digital, how you say, when the digital arrived, they got lost somewhere.
The worst thing you can do is to work together with the television, the NRK, because then they decide. It's just like in the Soviet Union, where you had the Communist Party, and you had Shostakovich. I use him as an example. The composer Shostakovich, he made 3 types of music: one for his own drawer, one for the party, and one for history. And sometimes he took out the wrong drawer. And then in the front page of Pravda, the day afterwards, it said Shostakovich is not longer a friend of the people because he makes noise, Nobody understands his music. But in the NRK, it's the same, but the party is not visible. It's behind the bars, it's behind, So if you go into a work co-production with them, they bring you into compromises. Think of the audience. You have to think what they like. You cannot do this or that. This is too complicated. No, this has to be, Once you go into there, goodbye with the artist. Almost 100%. Maybe there are some exceptions. But when I was working in the television in Tromsø, the roof was very high. I could do exactly what I wanted. They accepted it. So I did a lot of strange things. And one thing I did on this painter, Bjarne Holst, as I told you have to Google him. When I met the chief of the television in Tromsø the day after it had been on the screen, he said, nothing should please me more than if one person liked this program. But today, it is shown wherever there is an exhibition of Bjarne Holst, this film is with it. So it takes time. It takes time, It takes time for people to get into themselves. But I think in one strange, there's so much serious that has been going on. You have the polarization in Norway. They try to say we are in equality. It's not true, So the rich is getting, as Leonard Cohen says, the rich gets richer and the poor gets poor. That's how it goes. Everybody knows, So after some time with that sort of knowledge, people and societies goes into polarizations. And that's when you have Vladimir, Adolf, Joseph, Donald, then they pop up, they pop up because when people are very sort of bewildered and they see that this is not good, they go for the extremes. They go for the extremes, for the
Yeah.
revolution, for Stalin, whatever. And remember, the experiment of Stalin is very interesting. The philosophy was to create a new human being, the Soviet man and the Soviet woman, a new person.
New breed almost.
Yeah, a new breed, yes. And if you were not accepting that breed, you were an enemy of the people. You were an enemy of the people if you didn't, as in Jesus Christ, in religion, in the Muslim, whatever religion you put up for me, all ism is more or less, what should I say, based on that everybody should believe in this religion or in this ism or in this social, in this. If you don't believe in this, you are not a not believer.
Hmm.
If you are in the Islamic tradition and you don't believe in it, you are a non-believer. If you are a Christian, you are a non-believer. If you are a communist, you are a non-believer. So when there are non-believers enough, they fight each other to make sure that everybody is in the same boat. So for 83 years, they have been battling about communism or fascism or religious. Remember all the religions we have. The Greek Orthodox, no, they quarrel in Ukraine and Russia, who is the patriarch. Then you had the Rome, you have Byzance, you have all the religions spread all over the world. You have it in South America. And you have all sort of as they said before, I spent 1 year in Soviet Union, a fantastic time I had over there. I learned a lot about myself and a lot of things. And when I came back, I met the polarized left wing, that was more Stalin than Stalin in a period of time. And they asked me, what did you learn in the Soviet Union? I said, I learned to think consequence. What is the consequence of an ism? What is the consequence of a religion if it goes into ISIS, Taliban, or whatever? What is the consequence? The consequence is absolutism, which is the contrary of humanity. So I have become a confused wise man in this time. So, somebody would just laugh at all this nonsense that I'm talking, but you never know. Maybe you can put a seed or something somewhere in a young person's life. Go for yourself, go for no compromises and believe in the planet.
I think after the Corona arrived back in the days, like 4 years ago or something, I think the world turned into a David Lynch world. I don't understand the news anymore, and I don't understand anything. Everything feels like propaganda from both sides now, and I don't understand anything anymore. But I watch movies, so I don't need to understand the world. What your films? Is it easy to get the raw footage from your films to actually do a new restoration of your features? Are they all still available somewhere?
They are, most of them should be and are in the National Library.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
The original negatives of all my 16 millimeters are more or less there, and also the features. And after the digital world, then you have to deliver a file a quality file to the National Library, so you can get all the new films that is shot in digital. You can find there, but to have them, I've been asking them for a long time to digitalize some of my movies, and there is always something else that is more important. But they have done some of it, after pressure from me all the time. The Norwegian Film Institute hasn't done much to try to restore my films. They have restored a lot of Norwegian films, but not mine so far.
But I think if one of these companies I buy films from, either one of them actually, they are really, really great. They are going into each project and getting the best out of the movie as possible, and most of them are overlooked by the director himself, or female, or cinematographer, or any. So that's why I'm asking, because I think it's so weird that your films, like I saw this Stella Polaris DVD, and it doesn't look quite right because it's so grayish. It almost feels like I'm watching NRK in a way. I know it sounds weird, but it doesn't seem like the 100% right.
No. They have actually digitalized Stella Polaris. It's now directly from the negative in top quality. So they have done that, and they have done it also with Burnt by Frost. So
Nice.
these two are on DCP, shown on DCP here and there, and also from the negative. And they have the best scanning equipment in the world, actually. So,
but both Stella Polaris, Burned by Frost, and Passing Darkness, and Ice Chess,
yeah,
are all of them shot on film?
Yeah.
35 millimeter or all
yeah.
Yeah. So that means that you have a perfect. If they get restored, it will be really nice to see them on physical.
And they used to say that you are making small films. Your films are small, narrow.
Yeah.
That is small in Norwegian. I said, no. They are all made on 35.
Yeah.
Because when you say small film, you mean 8 millimeters or 16.
Yeah.
No. And if you want to, you can. If you want to have small film, you can cut my 35 in two. Then you have two versions.
Yeah.
Two 16 mil.
That's an experimental film.
Yeah.
Do you remember the first film you ever saw that impacted you in a way?
When I was evacuated as because of the war, I have to close the window now.
Yeah. That looked fun on camera.
When you're living in the Arctic, when the sun comes into the window, it gets warm and hot. And then when the sun is away, the wind is chilly.
It looks like a Kaurismäki movie when you went in the car and closed the window.
Kaurismäki is one of my favorites,
Yeah,
and
it's really fun.
Why is Kaurismäki good? The thing that makes Kaurismäki good is that he is making Finnish films. That's why Bergman is making Swedish films.
Yeah.
I try to make Norwegian films. So if you are Kaurismäki, he makes fantastic films. You can go to France, to Godard, you can go to Fellini. I have the poster of Hiroshima, Mon Amour, the first manuscript that Marguerite Duras wrote, and with Renoir, and a film that made impact on me. And nobody can say that an Italian film is not Italian, or a Russian film is Russian. So that's why a Norwegian film has to be a Norwegian film, as an American film has to be an American film, and so on. So once you are rooted in something that means something to you, you use your whole life to explore what it is. I tried to explore, why was I born here? Why did the Germans come here and burnt everything? How could I get out of this, and so on and so forth. So the first film I saw was when I was evacuated in Harstad, outside in a former prisoner camp, where 800 Russians died of hunger and working themselves to death to construct the Adolf cannon, which is in my last movie. We went to the town, but everybody could see that we were evacuated because the hair was cut in the same way and the clothes were. So all the boys from the town was more or less discriminating us, calling us refugees and Laps, Sami people and so on and so forth. So we had to, but there was a Norwegian boxer, Otto von Porat, and he had a course in this prisoner camp with the boys. So he taught us how to box. And and one of these great guys, his name was Ivan Isaksen. And we called him Ivan the Cruel, as the Russian emperor. And when he went in front, nobody of the boys in the town dared to do something with us. And we went to the cinema, and the first cinema I saw was The Count of Monte Cristo in the old cinema in Harstad. And it was very exciting. It was very, scary, because it was in a prison. We were following this man with a lot of hair and bears and everything. And in the middle of the film, I felt that I should have left, because, the situation was so hard for the toilet. So I had two choices. Either to leave the movie, go to the toilet, or the other solution was to do the peeing, which I did. So it was running through my trousers, and I kept it in such a way that it went more or less into the shoe. And I was sitting there doing nothing, just moving and looking at a movie. And when it was all over, I was, getting out in the most careful way. But there was a river after me, down the cinema. That's the first experience I had with cinema.
And we got to tell the people that you were 35 when this happened. No, you were around 6, 7 maybe, or?
Oh, yeah, maybe, because I was evacuated in this camp. We all evacuated in the autumn, or in October, November of 1944. But I came to this camp after some, other places in 45. So I stayed from 45 to 51. So it must have been, let's say, 47, 8 maybe, when I was 7, 8 years old or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was my very, very first experience. So I remember it as if it was yesterday, 7 years old, my first experience with cinema. Yeah. And my first acting in cinema. When I was studying French, I decided I wouldn't go to Paris. I tried to find out, is there a Scandinavian institute in France teaching French students Scandinavian languages? Yeah. There was one institute in Caen, in Normandy, not Cannes, but Caen, Caen.
In the north of France.
In the north of France. There was a Scandinavian institute, only girls, mainly, that were interested in Scandinavian language and Scandinavian literature. So I chose that because I knew that all these girls were very eager to learn Norwegian. Mm-hmm. I was very eager to learn French. Yeah. What they had as a pensum was Norwegian classics, So I learned my French through Hunger, the book of Knut, which they had to read in Norwegian. So we were trying to translate from Norwegian to French and back and forth and so on. And I went to a course, but there was so many, 2 or 3 clever Germans, that were so clever in grammar, that when I got everything back, it was red everywhere, because my grammar in French was not as good as these other pupils. But then the German that was in head of German teaching, nice guy, he and 2 German students were asked to be extras in a French film. But they wanted 5 Germans, and there were only 3. So me and a Swede was asked if we wanted to be in the movie. Of course.
Is this a feature or
a feature.
yeah?
And one of the French teachers had been in Sweden, and he bought a P1800 Volvo sports
Mm.
car,
Mm.
and we became very good friends. So I was driving with him with a Nazi uniform down to the Falaise of Normandy, and I played in a movie as an extra called La Vie du Château. But Catherine Deneuve was playing the main role, and Philippe Noiret, who played in Cinema Paradiso,
Mm.
and Bernard Blier.
Mm.
These were the stars, the French stars. So down there we were sitting, drinking red wine and eating baguette and so on, together with Catherine Deneuve. That was my first experience. And I've seen the movie, and I think I'm there in almost a second. Because I knew when they were shooting, so I was finding the DVD only a few years ago.
Okay.
So I was, what do you say, scrolling.
Yeah.
And you can see me with a German Moser, German gun
Yeah.
on the
Monster.
top of a bunker. And I think I haven't timed it, but maybe 1 second,
Yeah.
24 frames. That was my first experience.
No, but that's cool. You have been
Yeah.
been in a feature when you were. How old were you?
20, on my way to be 25.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how old were you when you did this? I never asked you about that actually, but
That film, I was 30.
okay. So this was your first time you made. You actually rolled the camera, to say it like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm very happy because, as a director or as a, let's say, a film person, I had an academic education, which means that I had a lot of knowledge in history, French history, French literature, the same with Russian, So I had a very, what do you say, a general basis of culture knowledge and historical knowledge and language knowledge to bring into my films, because a lot of people come in Norwegian films, they came via technology,
Yeah.
And I think there were only two in Norway that had education from abroad. Anja Breien had from Paris, and Paul Bang Hansen from Italy, but only film education. So I
Yeah.
was happy to have 7 years of academic education. So when I started to make movies, I was already, as I used to say, I was already 30 years old.
And you speak still Russian. I know you understand, but French also.
Yeah.
Do you know Italian also?
I understand quite a lot because, as I said, it's a Roman language.
Yeah.
But I haven't had the energy to go into it, in the same
Yeah.
way. And the same with Portuguese. Portuguese is a very difficult language in the speech. But
A German also you understand the most part, right?
German, because we had that in school. So
Yeah.
I've been practicing it. So I speak,
Yeah.
I understand everything in German. I'm not so good, not so fluently maybe, but when I lack a word, I say it in Norwegian. It's almost the same.
Yeah. So you actually speak and understand 4, 5, 6, 7 languages then. If you take Sweden, Norwegian, Danish,
Yeah.
it's starting to become a lot, Knut Erik.
Yeah, that is what is bad with the English speaking, let's say, people. If you come to Norway, all young people speak English.
Yeah.
Once you speak one other language, you know a little more than your own country, than your own culture. If you speak
Yeah.
more languages, the more you know. So I feel sorry often for the English and the Americans that only speak their language, which means that they haven't needed, or they haven't pressed themselves to go into let's say Italian or French or other languages, because if you go around the world now, more or less everybody speak English.
The most sad part about Americans, I think, and I'm not talking trash about them. I have a lot of friends there, and most of the people who watch this is American. But I always say this to my friends: is that there are so many American who struggles with subtitles, and I think it's such a shame because then they only watch American films, and I think they don't experience films. They just experience one side of films.
Absolutely, absolutely. I used to say that you know why there are always two policemen going together. One can write and the other one can read.
Yeah, right. It's good we have the
Also,
best.
they say in America you should never run away from a fat policeman because he cannot run, so he shoots first
Yeah,
and he eats afterwards.
that's the problem with all the killing or police killing.
Yeah. Because they cannot run, they are too heavy.
Yeah, yeah. You said to me that you had went into Høgskolen in Alta. I don't know where the high school. High school is that in Alta?
Yeah.
And you have said to the. I don't remember exactly how you said it, but you said that if you if I understood my film. No, what was you said, Knut Erik? If what's your movie about? I think somebody asked you. Or,
Yeah. And I think I said something. If I know what it is about, then it's boring.
yeah, yeah. Or
Yeah.
no, you said actually, well, if I knew what it was going to be about, why would I make it or something
That's
like
right.
that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
yeah, I love that saying.
But that's my good friend Stefan Jarl, who I haven't met him for a long, long, long time. But I asked him. He was making both fiction and documentary, and I asked, "What do you think is the difference between documentary and feature?" And he was shaking his head and saying, "It's the same shit, all of it." Yeah.
I hope somebody will pick up some of your films soon because it's weird that they haven't been.
I try to keep them as secret as possible.
I know you don't. I know you want them yourself also on good quality and everything.
Good quality. Yeah.
Yeah, to really get them restored and everything. That would be. I would just say that the scene that really struck me after 5 years, 4 years of working with you, of all I've seen from Longing for Today, still the scene that I think is a scene that I will go back to 100 times in the future is the song scene from Morning,
Yeah.
Norge.
Mm.
That scene, but I told you the first time I saw that film, and I don't know what it is. It's kind of darkness and light all put together in one moment, and yeah, it's a beautiful scene.
It's one of my favorite, actually, in my whole film story.
Yeah, yeah, I love it too. It's a really beautiful.
What is interesting with it is that it's mysterious. You don't know what that person does in that location. You have the children listening to an opera singer singing a sonata. And she is so beautiful coming to that school, to that ruin, singing this song. It's yeah.
You can draw it almost over to a witch in some parts, and also, Snow White, the classic story with the
Hmm.
witch there.
Yeah.
You have she's almost too beautiful to be there, and everything is kind of off.
Yeah, that's good to hear that you have picked that out because somebody think it's quite, strange or weird or whatever you say, but I think it's one of my real favorites, I must say.
The most thing I love about watching films is it's strange since I'm a director myself, but it's actually comparing directors and comparing films just to find bits and pieces. And
Mm, mm,
I don't know if I ever told you this, but I had only seen one of Tarkovsky's film when I worked with you, and then I went into his full filmography. He doesn't have that many films though, but I saw all of his films. Mirror, his film Mirror was, I think that's the closest I have been to Longing for Today. To have the same kind of, I don't know, mood if that's the right word, but to have the same kind of feel when I watch what I've seen from Longing for Today.
mm, mm.
Probably also that's why I said to you so many times that I feel there is a Russian inside you. It's like I But you have lived in Russia, of course, and you have probably taken something from that film.
You know, if you come from Finnmark, this area, which is the most international area in the whole Scandinavia, because you have all the tribes meeting here. You have the Finns, the Russians, the Swedes, and some few Norwegians, and the Sami people, you know, and the Finnish immigrants. So you have already a mixture of people, and main part of them coming from the east. You know, Finland is a neighboring country. You know, all the northern Norwegians used to have their holidays in Finland or in northern Sweden. And Russia, when Russia opened, you know, then you went there. So you can say that my sort of impulses go from Eastern Europe. You might say, you know, Czechoslovakia, Poland, and Russia, and maybe the Baltic states and Finland. You know, that is my area. I feel more alike there and in the Anglo-Saxon world. But then, you know, I love the French language, you know, the French softness and so on. But I have great respect for all German classical music, you know, and so on, and Austrian, of course. And Hungarian, I listen very much to Hungarian music. So my experience or my influences comes from the East. And we come from Genghis Khan, you know, as Korikivia used to say.
Everyone.
So, you know, the rest of the southern Norway is more or less Germanic, while we are much more Eastern sort of inspired.
Yeah.
So maybe that's, you know, in Murmansk, they used to call me the Norwegian Tarkovsky. I used to say that it was easier for Tarkovsky to make religious films in the Soviet Union than it is for me to make artistic films in Norway. But you might, I think you are right in the mood. You know, it's a question of when you are in a mood, as they sing, I'm in the mood for love. What is, you know, when you are in a mood, you know, you are in a sort of state or a sort of undefined sort of situation that you cannot explain. And that is very often the thing you get from art or from a good film or whatever it is, you know, the unexplainable. Or as Welhaven says in his poetry, you know, what is in between the lines is the mystery of the poetry. And that cannot be explained. That is the mood you're in when you are in love, in jealousy, in irrationalism, or in war or whatever, you know. That is the irrationalism that you cannot explain. You can just experience it as an experience that changes your personality. When you see something, you know, as you say, the smile of Mona Lisa is still as mysterious as it has always been. My theory is that she had just been eating cucumbers. What you say, if you get into that mood in my film, Reinert, you have made it a day. All the 9 movies I made for the cinema has still less budget than one war movie in Norway. So I've been doing films for almost nothing. You know, the film with the doctor, the 2 of us, I made for the cinema, 1 million, because it was a lot of travels and post-production. But the rest was free camera, free directing. I don't know if I got some money from it. I can't remember.
Mats Gilbert, yeah.
The acute men.
Akut, ja, som är akut, ja.
Akutte mennesker, ja.
I still haven't seen that one, but your films are impossible to get a hold on for to see. So in Stella Polaris, you only have, I saw it just 4 months ago or something, actually with my girlfriend. You only have dialogue for like 4 sentences or something in the entire movie.
Yeah, I think I'm beating Terminator 2. I think he had 72 words or something. So I think I was beating him with less than 72. There is one sentence after 15 minutes. You have to wake up. That's the first sentence. And the other one is, it could have been worse. It could have been me. So Arne Nordheim was composing the music to the movie. And every time we met on the street, he was pointing at me and he said, it could have been worse. It could have been me. So
that's almost like Terminator. Schwarzenegger was stopped all the time, and everybody's told him, "I'll be back."
Yeah.
So before we end it, I just want to ask you: do you collect anything yourself, like movies or music or?
Mainly music. Film is very, of course, that's what I'm working with. But when I was asked, I think it was in Grimstad, in one of the festivals, to put up my favorite directors and so on, and I put up names from here and there and from Eastern Europe, and I put in 2 composers, Penderecki and another one, and everybody thought, nobody knew about Penderecki, of course, as a composer. They thought he was a director because I put him into the list. Let's say more inspired by music than by films. But in order to see films, because I have limited time, I used to say yes to be in juries, because when you are in a jury, you have to see the movies. And then you can compare them with your own standards and say, oh, I should have been a writer instead of a director.
Yeah.
All these fantastic movies. And there is one important thing, yes. If you once in your lifetime can say that you show your film on the same screen all over the world, if you work in a local theater or you paint or whatever, nobody might compete with you. But once you put your film up on the screen, if I do it, I compete with Borgman, with Kaurismäki, with Dreyer, with Woody Allen, you compare with everybody. So if you once in your lifetime touch or dream of or believe, being naive enough that you reach that level, only once, maybe with only one film, it's almost unbelievable. That is the standard on the white screen, where you see all the movies in the world, you compete with them. The National Theatre in Norway doesn't compete with anybody. Or the NRK, the broadcasting, doesn't compete almost with nobody.
Yeah.
But once you put your film up on the screen, goodbye.
Befolkningen flykter i panikk, og Stalins røde armé rykker inn i ruinen. Hallo!
Когда снега метут, жди, когда жара.
Evakueringen av Finnmark og Nord-Troms nå ferdig. I havna i Tromsø var det dyrende lik.
Du må tilgi meg.
La meg være i fred.
Jeg drukna dem som enda levde. De var bare ungdommer.
slår igjennom. Det er tysk kultur. Steg i fulle mål ved